Hello all and welcome to the video newsletter for October 2019 for Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, the upcoming MMO game that encourages cooperation and exploration. My name is Ben Dean, I'm the producer of Pantheon. Just so you know ahead of time, we're expecting this stream to last about 30 minutes. And with me is David Schlau, the senior content creator.
Hey everybody, thanks for coming. We have some great content coming up in this episode.
Does it include lots of scenes of you dying?
It does not include lots of scenes of me dying, but we do have creative director Chris Perkins outlining racial passive abilities. And then J.N. Gerhardt's going to come and inform us a little bit about the Spriggan, and then we're going to circle back at the end and answer some burning questions from you guys, the community.
Now that sounds like a show I would follow.
But seriously, every bit helps. Follow, share, or if you can, pledge. Pantheon is a crowd-funded game, and every pledge helps. Visit pantheonmmo.com/join to have a look at our different pledge packages. And with that, let's head over to the producer's letter.
All right, let's jump in. So earlier this year, we announced that we would get started on Project Fairthale. Now, the idea behind Project Fairthale was simple. We're going to make all of the systems in Pantheon and make it into a short, playable segment of the game, sort of like a mini Pantheon, as it were. Now, we knew it was an ambitious project, and we knew that was going to take some time. But we also knew that we would need to hunker down, and unfortunately, that we wouldn't be able to show anything new until it was ready. So as we were progressing in this ambitious project, we started realizing that really to capture the soul of Pantheon, to really capture that essence that makes Pantheon Pantheon, we're going to have to extend our timelines a little bit. Now, what we didn't want to do, though, is that we didn't want to stop speaking to you guys. We didn't want to stop those lines of communication, and we knew that we had to step it up. So that's what we're doing. And starting today on this very stream, every 2 weeks, we're going to be hosting a stream, either the video newsletter or a look back at the previous 2 weeks, and we'll be doing that all live right here on twitch.tv/Visionary Realms.
So we're doing this every 2 weeks?
Yeah, that's right. Well, not this. I mean, this is the video newsletter, and if it's not a video newsletter week, what we're going to be doing is just kind of taking a look at the other departments of development. Like, we'll get the programmers on, talk a little bit about programming. We'll talk to the artists. We'll talk to the lore masters.
Cool. Sounds like a lot of fun stuff.
Oh yeah, it should be. It should be.
Are we still doing the newsletter in written format?
Yeah, absolutely. So for this newsletter here, expect it to take a couple days, but we will absolutely have it out to your mailboxes, and all newsletters, for that matter, will have a written version as well. Yeah.
Okay. And and we already talked a little bit about what the non-format newsletters are going to be like.
Yeah, well, like I said, that we'll have segments of getting some programmers on, getting some artists on, getting some lore masters on, bring Chris Perkins in, we'll bring all of the people in, we'll bring in some of the community managers. Every week it'll be a different show, and show just a little bit of a different slice of what's going on behind the scenes at Pantheon Development. Cool.
This will be fun.
Oh, it should be, and I'm glad that you like it, because you're going to be doing most of the video editing.
I knew that was coming, but I love it. Can't wait.
Well, you really did do a good job, though. On tonight's segments, we've got a few videos coming up, and you did a fantastic job, I got to tell you. I hear that the racial passives, actually, that video is pretty good.
Yeah, it's super exciting. Can't wait to show these guys.
Before we get into that, though, can you tell us a little bit what racial passives are?
Yeah, they're the abilities your characters learn innately, simply by being a certain race. The passive part of it means that the abilities are always on, so you don't have to do anything to activate them.
Right, so if you had a character or a race that, say, could see well in the dark.
Yeah, that would be a racial passive.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So before we roll the video, though, please know that we're aware of some of the small quality flaws in the stream. The quality of these videos will be improving as we go along, but to be honest with you, we just wanted to get the information out to you. So the more we do these, the better they're going to get.
Right. Well, thanks, Dave. And with that, let's head over to Jabba in his Tower of Mystery and take a look at those racial passives.
It's actually just Black Rose Keep.
Hey everyone, my name is Chris Perkins. I'm the creative director on Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. Today I get to shed some new light on our 9 playable races, specifically the innate passive traits that distinguish them from one another and make them unique. I know our community's been really excited about this information, and we're very excited to share it with you. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to begin with the humans of Thronefast. The humans of Thronefast have this inherent belief or confidence that they're going to succeed in whatever they put their hand to. They're going to find the treasure they're looking for. They're going to slay the dragon. They're going to save the day. It's a powerful optimism that for them is linked very much to their love of adventure and exploration. The life of a Thronefastian human is a pursuit of glory. It's a chasing of dreams. And while there's some debate, the bards of Thronefast probably write the catchiest songs. It's these ingredients that have always caused the humans to have this knack for rallying others to a common goal. Let's take a look at the innate passives for the humans. First, we have a people-inspired. This increases melee, ranged, and spell haste by 2%. Next is Wanderlust. This grants a bonus to faction gain with neutral factions, and it increases the experience gained through exploration. Next, we have Shield Specialization. This increases the Shield Mastery skill by 10 points. Next, we have Thronefastian Charm. This increases the effectiveness of abilities that are modified by Charisma. And finally, humans will have an advantage against the Alarmist Disposition. The Elves of Faerthale share these 2 characteristics, placing a high value on the traditions of their people and keeping a steady guard over the Lucent Tree. But beyond these shared characteristics, there's meaningful diversity among their people, specifically with the 2 main factions of Elf, the Ashen and the Ember, which players will be able to choose between at character creation. The Ashen Elf is intelligent, wise, and measured. They give themselves to study and memorization and recitation, and become fierce wielders of the insight they gain. The Ember Elves are emblazoned fighters with impassioned hearts. They believe that evil should be met where it sleeps and dealt with swiftly with weapon in hand. Whether you choose to create an Ashen Elf or an Ember Elf, there will be general innate passives that apply to both, as well as unique innate passives that apply to each one individually. Let's take a look. Let's start with the innate passives for elves in general. First, we have Lucent Ancestry, which grants an innate bonus to nature magic resistance and increases the effectiveness of nature abilities. Next, we have Nimble, which increases the effectiveness of abilities modified by agility. And as elves, they will have an advantage against the True Sight Disposition. Let's look at the Ashen Elf now. First, we have Deep Recitation. This grants an innate 20% chance to resist spell interruption and counterspell abilities. Then we have Sagacious. Ashen Elves gain extra spell rating from each point of wisdom. Now let's look at the Ember Elf. First, we have Unflinching. This grants an innate 20% chance to resist knockdown and knockback abilities. And then we have Deftness. This gives Ember Elves extra attack rating from each point of dexterity. The Halflings of Wild's End face every danger with a smile. As a people, they are imbued with mischief and a kind of wild joy. They're bursting with youthful optimism and the kind of confidence that says, of course, nothing's going to go wrong. But to the discerning, to those who look more closely, they can see that this is a people cursed, and the laugh of the wraith that cursed them still echoes on. Let's take a look at the innate passives for the Halflings. First, we have Wild Mind. This grants an innate 20% chance to resist charm and mesmerize effects. Next, we have Dagger Specialization. This increases the dagger skill by 10 points. Next, we have the Fire of Youth. This grants a bonus to the effect of consumables. Next, we have Wraith Hunters. This grants halflings a bonus to the damage they inflict against wraith targets. And finally, halflings will have an advantage against the deranged disposition. The dwarves of Kadasa are unique among the other races of Terminus in many ways, but perhaps most importantly, they are the only people who live in the physical presence of the celestial who formed them. While dwarven strength and fortitude and mastery of the forge are renowned, it is the inspiration they draw from the dwarven father's presence that marks them most prominently, producing in their ranks a legendary zeal, making them dauntless leaders and unwavering combatants. Let's take a look at the innate passives that belong to the dwarves. First, we have fortitude. Dwarves gain a bonus to the health they receive from each point of stamina. Next, we have grip of the dwarven father. This grants dwarves immunity to disarm. Next, we have ice and stone. This grants dwarves an innate bonus to their cold resistance, as well as an innate bonus to their frigid and toxic acclimation scores. Next, we have mountain forged. This increases their blunt weaponry skills by 10 points. And finally, dwarves will have an advantage against the avenging disposition.
Well, we learned a lot more about races, not just the passives. That was pretty cool. Like humans being confident, maybe too confident.
Yeah, and the elves, I think the two playable factions, Ashen and Ember, I think that was a pleasant surprise probably for the community.
That was pretty cool, yeah. Like the Ashen are more of the magical book smarts type of elves, and the Ember are kind of like the street gangstas. But it's cool. So they have the shared passives, and then they have their factional passives as well.
Did you just say street gangsters? Elves are street gangsters. Okay,
gangsters.
Just checking. Yeah, and the curse on the halflings was pretty sweet also.
Oh yeah.
There's just so much story to the races behind in Pantheon.
Yeah, there really is. We'll continue with the rest of the racial passives a little bit later in the show, but first let's talk a little bit about the lore. We'll talk a little bit. We can't talk about the lore without talking about J.N. Gerhardt, our lore master and lead writer. So he's obviously very much involved in the creation of the races, but he's also very much involved in the creation of the world and the stories behind Terminus and Pantheon in general. But beyond just the playable races, he's also very much involved in the creation of the NPC races.
You're talking about the Spriggans.
I am talking about the Spriggans. And actually, maybe I shouldn't talk about the Spriggans. Maybe we should let J.N. talk about the making of the Spriggans, who you will see in Faerthale.
Hey everyone, J.N. here. I wanted to take a few minutes and discuss the design process of creating our Spriggan NPC model, as well as sprinkle in some bits of story where it makes sense. If at the end of this video you still want some additional information on the Spriggan, their lore, and so forth, we'll have that linked in the video description below. Before we begin any aspect of visual design, be it player model, NPC, or an environmental asset, we try and establish what is the most important feature. For some, there may be a heavy reliance on function or mechanics, such as a boss mob. For others, it may be the role that it plays in the world, like the Wanderstones. For the Spriggan, there was an opportunity to bring to life some of the more fantastical elements of our world, and one that exists in the wide area between obscurity and that of a staple NPC. So with that in mind, we began with story, and with simple words like age and beauty, then the art and design flowed from there. Spriggan are one of the oldest races on Terminus, created in an age long before any of the playable races came onto the scene. As a testament to that, they actually still refer to the planet as Noah, which is one of the oldest names used, predating Terminus, Nistorok, and even Avazul. And if I may make a brief aside for certain members of our community, answering a question once and for all, yes, the planet of Terminus did exist before dwarves, elves, ogres, and so forth arrived. Long before, in fact. As for the design of the Spriggan, we wanted to capture some of that age, but also present a rustic sort of grace and vitality. Throughout the process, I like to think of that quality as an ancient youthfulness, something akin to the way that the endlessly repeated cycle of spring is always new, or that the oldest tree in an orchard can still bear fresh fruit. So we needed to have both ends of that spectrum present within the design. We arrived at what you see, a slender, slow-grown physique, with a surface that communicates age and strength. We wanted the legs and the limbs to feel like they were grown from the soil, and in some cases may return to it. That kind of body lent itself to pockets of negative space where we could showcase the vibrant light that comes from the verdant shard. That's what's peeking and pulsing through the eyes, neck, and chest of the Spriggan. This approach allowed us to keep their vitality front and center while preserving the role as the preeminent treefolk of Terminus. Going back to the verdant shard for a moment, it's worth noting that that green flame is the life force of the creature itself, and of every Spriggan since their creation. What lies buried within their body is merely a splinter of the first verdant shard, which was the final gift of their creator, known as the Seed of Life. One example is in the weapons and armaments of the Spriggan. Depicted here with the model is the arm of the Emerald Sky. This intricate staff is able to conduct and direct with great power, and is said to be granted to non-Spriggan on rare occasions. For the design of the arm of the Emerald Sky, we basically run through the same process as the model itself, albeit on a tighter scale. We knew that we wanted a staff, something that served as a testament to the Spriggan culture and signified their role as ancient shepherds of the natural order. So from there, it was just about executing on that goal and creating something that felt native to the Spriggans, as if they made it themselves. As always, thank you so much for your interest in Pantheon. See you in Noah, friends.
Dude, that was just a fantastic video.
Yeah, Jan really just, he brought the world to life. He's a fantastic storyteller.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and the artist. You know, I think about this a lot, just the concept of people coming up with an idea in their head, communicating it effectively to the rest of the team, and then everybody getting on board, sharing the same vision, and just making it happen. This creation process is just awesome.
And, the Spriggan are a great example. I mean, they've been around since before anything else on Terminus, it sounds like. So imagine the story and the lore we're going to be able to unpack once we start exploring deeper into Faerthel and these guys.
That's what Pantheon's all about. I mean, explore the world, find out its secrets, make the story your own. I mean, there's really nothing like it, apart from maybe some single-player RPGs that I can think of.
I can't wait. And I get to play now. And I still can't wait.
I hear you, man. But, to help pass the time, let's go back to some racial passives. We'll head back to Joppa in his library of mystical magics.
It's Black Rose Keep.
The Archai of Suroa enjoy a culture that is largely marked by celebration. They have an abiding sense of gratefulness for the gift of liberation they were given a long time ago. But they're also a people who know pain. This liberation came at a great cost, no longer able to exist as the beings of light and energy that they once were, but now having to take on this outer shell, which, though powerful and teeming with elemental energy, they're still seen as a kind of prison for the Archai. And so we have a culture of celebration mixed with ache and deep longing as they look to become what they once were. Let's take a look at the innate passives for the Archai. First, we have Living Reservoir. This reduces the effects of mana drain by 20%. Next, we have Effervescent. This grants the Archai immunity to effects that drain endurance. Next, we have Elemental Attunement. At character creation, you will choose one of 4 elements to attune to as an Archai, either fire, water, wind, or earth. Elemental Attunement grants a bonus to the effectiveness of elemental-based abilities that match the element that you are attuned to. Next, we have Natural Acclimation. Again, based on the element you've attuned to, this grants an innate bonus to the acclimation score based on that attunement. Fire attunement will receive a bonus to Scorching Acclimation. Water will have a bonus to Frigid Acclimation. Wind will have a bonus to Wind Shear Acclimation. And Earth will have a bonus to Toxic Acclimation. And finally, the Archai will have an advantage against the Playful Disposition. The gnomes of Skyhold were isolationists for the first 50 years after arriving on Terminus. And while their hidden activity over that half-century remains a mystery, the doors of Skyhold are now open, and the gnomes have emerged. As a people, gnomes are extremely interested in magic and mystery. They are much like arcane archaeologists, always on the hunt to solve the next riddle or grasp a new, deeper power. But they carry the memory of the Elos fire, and with it a kind of fear that guards them from following their passion or their curiosity so far as to destroy them. Let's take a look at the innate passives for the gnomes. First, we have Incantation Mastery. This grants an innate 20% chance to resist silence. Next, we have Enigmatic Brilliance. With this, gnomes gain extra mana from each point of intelligence. Next, we have Ethereal Being. This increases their dodge chance by 3%. Next, we have Constant Scholar. This increases the rate at which gnomes improve their skills. And finally, gnomes will have an advantage against the Mastermind disposition. We would describe the Scar of Skargal as animalistic, ruthless pack hunters. In fact, when we were initially conceiving of the Scar as a playable race, raptors were often invoked as a way of describing their behavior towards their enemies or their prey. But there's also this interesting, almost insect-like aspect to them, just because of their sheer ability to adapt and endure. They're the kind of being that could go a long time without eating or drinking anything and not really feel the effects of it. And so you can imagine Scar lying in wait, sometimes for days at a time, waiting for the right moment to strike. And then, like a raptor or like a swarm, they attack with kind of a fearless abandon and devour their enemy, or at times, each other. Let's take a look at the innate passives that belong to the Scar. First, we have Long Suffering. This increases a Scar's maximum health by 5%. Next, we have Fear of the Nine God. This grants an innate 20% chance to resist fear effects. Next, we have Pack Hunter. This grants up to a maximum of 5% increase to movement speed when in range of other Scar group members. And finally, Scar will have an advantage against the predatory disposition. When describing the Ogres of Broken Maw, what comes to the forefront is their immense physical strength and stamina, and it is all geared towards combat for the Ogre. Their mindset is entirely focused on the heat of battle, and when they enter into combat, they enter into this kind of battle trance, where it is just me and this thing in front of me. One-on-one conflict, ultimate victory, that is the constant stream in the mind of the Ogre. Let's take a look at the innate traits, the innate passives for the Ogres. First, we have Broken Maw's Grit. Ogres gain extra attack rating from each point of strength. Next, we have Staggering Strength, which increases the Ogre's critical damage by 5%. Next, we have Battle Hardened. This grants an innate 25% chance to resist non-magical stun effects, and this becomes 100% immunity to non-magical stuns during battle trance, which is an Ogre active racial ability, which we'll talk about soon. And finally, Ogres will have an advantage against the bloodthirsty disposition. I had some really good chats with J.N. Gerhardt, our lead writer, as I was working on these racial passives and putting together these little bites about the races. And some of you will be interested to know that in talking about the Dark Myr, one of the places that he's drawn inspiration is from the Chiss of Star Wars lore. The Dark Myr are a fascinating race. They're characterized by the legends and the myths that pervade their culture. They're constantly aware of their past as well, the tragedy and the subsequent bitterness and resentment that has grown out of that. And so in the present time, Dark Myr are They're cunning, they're cold, they're calculated, they're highly logical, and these are all fruits that flow from the kind of cynical bitterness through which they see the world around them. Let's take a look at the racial passives that belong to the Darkmer. First, we have Vestige of Sirenai. This grants underwater breathing and increased swim speed. Next, we have Perceptive, which increases the Darkmer's natural insight skill. Next, we have Embittered Psyche, which improves both the natural stealth effectiveness and awareness of the Darkmer. Next, we have Born of Deep Waters, which grants an innate bonus to their anaerobic and pressure acclimation scores. And finally, Darkmer will have an advantage against the cunning disposition. Well, that concludes our look at the innate passives for our 9 playable races. And you can look forward to an upcoming segment where we cover the innate active abilities for each race as well as their starting attributes.
You know, in every MMO game, I always play a Dwarf Paladin. That's my race, that's my class, that's my jam, that's what I play. But after seeing some of the Archai stuff, I'm starting to think maybe an Archai Monk?
I can see where that would work well with the immune to endurance drain.
Yeah, and the natural acclimation stuff too, that's pretty cool. That would really help with pulling or even off-tanking for that matter. What are you playing at launch?
You know, I'm not sure. I'd consider tank, but, well, you know, we saw how that went last time. Yeah. Probably an enchanter of some sort. I haven't landed on a race yet, but maybe, I mean, the Dark Mirror look awesome. So. Yeah, I like the Dark Mirror too. But speaking of enchanters, it sort of begs the question, something that I've sort of seen around a lot too, is if you're playing an enchanter who has the ability to, you know, take on an illusion, say you're playing a Dark Merchanter, and you cast Illusion Ogre, does that mean you take on the Ogre passives? You know, it's funny you should ask that, Ben. We should probably just play the next segment and Joppa answers all those questions. And
okay, yeah, so let's go back to Joppa's Belfry of Benevolent Behaviors.
Still Black Rose Cape.
Hey everyone, I'm back again to answer some of your burning questions about Pantheon's classes. Let's get started. Okay, so our first question is for the Cleric, and it comes from the user Aqua on our forums. Here's the question. How is the summoning and usage of Celestial Tomes going to work? Do I have to have it equipped in my weapon or shield slot to be working? First, Clerics will be able to summon Tomes in the early game. They will go into your general inventory and you can equip them from there. Once that falls off, you will be finding more powerful, rare tomes out in the world. And yes, you do have to have them equipped. They are a secondary or an offhand item, and so they'll fit in the same slot that a shield would. Okay, the next question is for the Dire Lord. This comes from the user Heganox on our forums, and the question is, will the Dire Lord have the highest base health pool? And how will the Dire Lord's health scale against the other tank classes? So all 3 of the tank classes will have a higher base health pool than the classes in the other archetypes. But none of the 3 tank classes will have a higher base health pool than the other, not including starting race, starting attributes, things like that. But what you've picked up on here is that yes, many of the Dire Lord's abilities and traits emphasize higher health and grow more potent, sometimes exponentially so, based on the total health a Dire Lord has. So when it comes to tanking, the higher and higher a Dire Lord's health pool is, that is synonymous with maximizing their tanking potential, which is unique for them. You look at something like the Warrior, obviously high health is important for any tank, but the Warrior is designed more to see that kind of potency and maximizing their potential through armor class more effectively than just brute amounts of high health. But there is absolutely a connection between the Dire Lord's potency and the size of their health pool. This question is for the Druid, and it comes from Timmy on our forums. The question is, will all races of Druid be limited to Hirode the Fox Companion, or will there be different types of companions based on the Druid's race that are more appropriate for that race? Totally understand where this question is coming from. It comes down to time and resources. If we have the time and the resources to create some additional manifestations of Hirode for the different races to make it more fitting, then we will most likely explore that. This question is for the Enchanter. It comes from our forums. I've seen it come up a few times, and the question goes something like this. Will entity-based illusions, such as Illusion Ogre, allow the Enchanter to not only look like the entity, but take on its traits or characteristics as well? Don't have a definitive answer yet, but I will say that I'm a big fan of progression. You can see it a lot in the different class designs, where something starts small, but then becomes more significant as you grow in power. So I would love to see something like illusions start off basic and just be a visual illusion. You appear to be something that you're not, and maybe there's some faction changes that come with that. But then also seeing a path of becoming more adept in your illusory arts, where it may eventually border on something more like transmutation, where you physiologically turn into the thing, taking on its traits and characteristics as well. I think something like that would be really cool. Okay, the next question is for the Paladin. This comes from the user Frigid on our forums, and the question is, Paladins are the only tanks that we've seen that have casting times for some of their abilities. What will this mean for their mitigation and avoidance? Will they be able to dodge, parry, block while casting? What about spell pushback? So first of all, Paladins have been intentionally designed without mana. That's to help them avoid the traditional anti-mana fare like silence, counterspell, mana drain, things like that, and the conundrum that can be for tanking in many situations, which relates to the other reason, which is to maximize their group readiness, to put them on par with warriors and dire lords when it comes to being able to sustain a group's momentum, not having to sit and wait, to get mana back between every fight, things like that. But yes, some of their abilities have casting times, which makes them vulnerable to spell interruption and spell pushback. They're being hit while trying to cast these certain abilities. So, but like I've said many times before, the class information we have released is not exhaustive. That would be a drag to have the entirety of what a class is capable of put out there, so that there's no discovery, there's no surprises once the launched game comes out. But in light of a potential gap or a flaw like this, I'll go ahead and say that for the Paladin, they will have a way to grow into minimizing and reducing their vulnerability towards interruption and pushback. Whether that will ever be totally 100% mitigated, yet to be seen. Finally, on the topic of the passive mitigation while casting, that's something that we're going to monitor very closely in testing. As of right now, regardless of the class, while you're casting something, your passive mitigation skills like dodge, parry, block, things like that are not active. And if that proves to be punitive for the Paladin, if it starts to affect their competitiveness when compared to the other tanks, that's something we will address. But otherwise, I think it's a suitable counterbalance for the insane amount of utility that a skilled Paladin has at their fingertips. Okay, 2 in 1 here. We've got a question for the Rogue and the Warrior. I'm going to hit them both together. The first question for the Rogue comes from the user Bannock on our forums, and the question is, will Rogues be able to pick locks in Pantheon? Yes. And the next question comes from Tahoe on our forums for the Warrior. Will Warrior banners stack if there are 2 Warriors in the group? Yes, as long as they're not the same banner. 2 Warriors, 2 different banners, they can use them both at the same time. That'll do it for this segment of Burning Questions. Thank you all for these questions, and I hope these answers have been helpful. Please keep your questions coming. We would like to do this segment more and more, so let us know if there's anything you're wondering about, and we'll try to cover it. Until next time, onward and upward.
You know, after seeing that, I'm starting to get second thoughts, and I'm starting to think maybe Archive Warrior?
Yeah, the whole stacking the banners is cool, and the battle formations, really
Right.
cool tactical abilities. Good for the whole group.
That's what I love about this game. Like it's not just the class design. I mean, the class design really does it well too, but everything about the game has, the thoughts of group play, of cooperation play. Like if you want two warriors in the group, why not? It actually works, and they actually have something to do.
I mean, that's the whole game, though. Everything is designed with promoting team play.
Yeah, no, you're right. Exploration and teamwork. What's better than that? Well, folks, unfortunately, we are running to the end of our time for tonight, but I hope you enjoyed the stream as much as we have. I'd like to thank you for coming.
When's the next one?
Next one is... Next one, actually, Monday, November 4th at noon Pacific. Excuse me. We're going to be on air with CohhCarnage again. So you'll want to check that out, twitch.tv/CohhCarnage.
That's going to be great. And we're actually going to maybe get to finally see a bit of Fairthale.
Yes, we're going to finally see Fairthale. So just a bit of a disclaimer first, we're not going to be seeing any actual gameplay, but for the first time you will actually be able to see just a short clip, just a little bit of a teaser of Fairthale and what we've been doing for the past couple of months.
Yeah, I think people are going to love that.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. But just remember, again, I just want to reiterate, it's not going to be a gameplay stream, but it will be a lot of fun. We're going to see lots of new stuff, so... and we're going to do some works in progress as well. So yeah, again, twitch.tv/CohhCarnage. That's where you'll want to tune in. That's Monday, November 4th at noon Eastern.
And then we'll be continuing our own streams every 2 weeks after that.
That's right.
Keep an eye on PantheonMMO.com for details, or follow us on Facebook or Twitter, both links below.
And while you're on PantheonMMO.com, as it says up there, go to PantheonMMO.com/join. That's where all the pledge packages are. As you know, Pantheon is a crowd-funded game, and your pledges really help, so we really do appreciate it. All of that money goes directly into development. So without further ado, that's it for me tonight. I'd like to thank you all again. I'm Ben Dean, signing off.
And I'm David Schlau. Thanks for watching. And can somebody please help me find my corpse?